Yemen and terrorist attacks against the United States have become a focus of the Obama administration since the attempted bombing of a U.S. aircraft on Christmas Day. I'm Pamela Falk for CBS News. Welcome to the broadcast. We're here today with Ambassador Abdullah al-Saidi, the ambassador of Yemen to the United Nations. With us is Ambassador al-Saidi, who has served with the Foreign Ministry in Yemen since the 1980s, trained in the United States at Columbia University, and has been at the United Nations. Ambassador al-Saidi, since the attempted bombing of a U.S. aircraft on Christmas Day by a Nigerian man allegedly trained in Yemen by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, the U.S. military has increased its operations in the region, and you have recently said that Yemen does not necessarily need U.S. help. What is your view of what kind of help the U.S. can give to Yemen in this fight against terror?
Thank you very much, Pamela. I never said Yemen does not need U.S. help. Quite the opposite. I think in this respect, we have one destiny. And the destiny of the two countries is to cooperate to eliminate this pestilence, terrorism. Yemen has a good military. It needs U.S. help in terms of weapons, in terms of intelligence information, and in terms of training. Yemen, provided we have these things from the United States and other countries cooperating in the fight against terrorism, I think Yemen will do an effective job of eliminating the Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
All right. The Obama administration is taking the situation in your country, needless to say, very seriously. And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently said that the instability in Yemen causes instability around the world. What do you think is the cause for al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula to have increased in recent years in your country?
I think there are many reasons. Chief among them is, of course, the abject poverty in the country. Yemen, after unification, it unified the two parts. One was close to the west, that was the north, and the south was close to the Soviet Union until 1990. They closed. Then the south became the population, because they were all employees of the socialist system. They became a big burden on the economy. And of course, Yemen declining oil revenues, that led to poverty. So we have been arguing that to fight terrorism is not only by security and military means, but by improving the lot of the people in the country. Because when you have an area with a lot of population growth, it is a fertile ground if there are poverty for these people. And they come, we're resourced, by the way, al-Qaeda, and they pay more than the government pays.
Yes, right now the U.S. has focused and has looked at Yemen since the 2000 attack of the coal. Right now, the United States has an amphibious carrier with jets aboard and a warship armed with cruise missiles off the coast. And these were the same units that were used in a December 17th and December 24th attack. Some believe that this has stirred up a hornet's nest. In other words, some of the issues may be that al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has set its sights to revenge these attacks against al-Qaeda in Yemen. How much do you think that the recent assistance, the military maneuvers by the United States, has played a part in the attempted bombing of a U.S. commercial aircraft?
No, I think that is what the Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula claimed. But mind you, the attack took place in December 17th. And then in less than 10 days, they claim they have the revenge. This has nothing to do with that attack. This was very well planned by Qaeda Central, not Qaeda the Arabian Peninsula. I think one of the deficiencies, I believe, in the fight against terrorism is lack of effective coordination between the different security systems in different countries. Whereas in this case, and I think you will see later when more information is revealed, that this was an operation of Qaeda Central, not only Yemen. Yes, I think he was trained there in Yemen. He was indoctrinated somewhere else. But probably the weapons he got is not in Yemen. He might picked it up somewhere else because he traveled to 3 countries before he reached Amsterdam. The Qaeda are not dumb enough. They are vicious, they are violent, they are bad, but they are thinking. I doubt they will give him the weapons, the explosive, and tell him travel from one country to the other without being afraid he might be exposed.
So let me get this straight. Your belief is that Al-Qaeda Central, not just Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, is behind this attempted attack.
Exactly the case, yes. And it was very much well planned before the attack of December 17th, which they accused the United States. The Yemeni military conducted the operation, and the U.S. cooperated in providing the intelligence.
And how much do you believe that this has to do with Osama bin Laden himself, his family? His father was born in Yemen. Is there a Yemen connection with Osama bin Laden and generally with Al-Qaeda?
No, I think if you, and as a matter of fact, I saw your program, CBS, yesterday, or ABC. They were interviewing Yemenis, and they all condemned in the streets. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with family. I think there are grievances in the Arab world in general, including the Iraq question, the Arab-Israeli conflict, poverty, and so on. But it has nothing to do with Osama bin Laden, that his father came from Yemen in the 30s and went to Saudi Arabia. I think the main cause of this terrorism is the ideology, the fanatic ideological underpinnings of these people. It has nothing to do with their with the ancestral homeland of Osama bin Laden. I doubt it.
And there has been an awful lot of cooperation by your president, President Saleh, and the king of Saudi Arabia. General Petraeus just went and met with your commanders. What is it that you believe that the United States and Saudi Arabia can do? Saudi Arabia has committed $2 billion. The United States is looking for Congress to approve $150 million. Do you think that is enough to conquer and battle not only the insurgency of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, but deal with these other North-South questions, the secessionist movement, all of the questions that you have to deal with as a government?
I think it will help. I think this idea of Friends of Yemen, in which the UK, the US, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and probably Kuwait and the other Gulf countries, and the European Union, I think will be helpful in a long plan development process in Yemen. The grievances of the separatists in the beginning was really about livelihood. They were used to the predictability of the socialist system. Prices never change. When, after unification, it was a market economy, it was very difficult for them that their salaries sometimes hardly make it. It's very difficult. With inflation, Yemen cannot keep up with providing more in terms of improving the salary and so on. So to assist Yemen in terms of development will meet a lot of these grievances and cool things down. And the case in the north with Saudi Arabia, the Houthis, of course there are external forces who wants to insinuate to the international community that they are rather a regional power, and you cannot resolve anything in the Middle East without their consent. So they support these people. But this we are working with the Saudis, and I think this is
would you call this a Sunni Shia?
No, because it's Zaydis, and the Zaydis are the closest Shia to the Sunnis. The president is Zaydi of Yemen. So it's not a question of Shia Zaydi. And Yemen is a tolerant society. We have one mosque for Zaydis and Sunnis. They don't have two mosques. And the Imam gives the sermon irrespective of whether he's a Zaydi or a Sunni. There is no differences in that term. I think it's the political aspect that exacerbates the situation, not the divide.
There's an awful lot of misunderstanding, clearly, in this country about what is going on domestically in Yemen. Yes. And most recently, the U.S. Embassy, for specific attack allegations, closed the U.S. Embassy. It reopened. Do you think the U.S. Embassy and other embassies, the UK, France, other embassies are safe and there's enough security in your country?
There is enough security and they are safe. And I want to refer you to the U.S. statement today, U.S. Embassy, that they are grateful to the Yemeni military because they eliminated the threat they were complaining from. And it was the threat which was the reason for closing the embassy was effectively eliminated yesterday, and they reopened. No, they have adequate security. And I feel that they exaggerate the strength of Qaeda in Yemen. If Qaeda was that effective since December 17, they would have done anything.
I've seen the numbers be about 100 people.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
The real issue is that this Abdullah at least may have been trained by, as you say, Al Qaeda Central.
No,
or at least
he was in touch with. I don't want to deny that he was in touch with bad elements, with Qaeda people in Yemen, but the whole operation was Qaeda Central. That is why we have to double efforts in order to overcome their strength.
And so one of the main concerns, obviously, of the United States was this entry issue. In other words, this is a Nigerian man having been trained in Yemen and with all of this other support coming into the United States. Do you believe that there is enough assistance and intelligence that's being shared to stop those kind of travelers, attempted bombers coming into the United States that Yemen is helping to provide?
Yemen will provide whatever information it has, but in this particular case, I think we all now realize, in hindsight, that we did not share enough intelligence. For example, had we known that he's in Yemen and his father complained about him that he's been radicalized by Qaeda, or the US told us, or the British told us, because he lived in Britain, we would have observed his activities and detained him if we knew he was going to do something wrong. We would not have allowed him to travel to other African countries. But we didn't know. We only knew when he tried to blow the plane that was from Amsterdam to Detroit.
In fact, President Obama himself has said this was a catastrophic loss and mistake on the part of U.S. intelligence and security, or at least a big one. Is your sense, what you are saying is that more information sharing could have prevented it and will prevent it in the future? I
think that is exactly the case, yes.
That Yemen would have detained him had they known?
Of course. If the U.S. come and tell us, look, this is a dangerous fellow, we have good relationship with the United States. Of course we will do that.
And is your sense, there have been some reports most recently that your government is somewhat fearful of the perception in the Arab world that the United States could be too much in control of the military operations, and in fact that Saudi Arabia could be as well. Is your sense that the United States can work in a military fashion, from intelligence to drones to boots on the ground, with the Yemeni government, or is your sense more that Yemen should be directing it? How do you see this?
No, Yemen will conduct the operation. There is no need for boots on the ground. You have a government there. It is conducting effective operation against Qaeda, and this is what the U.S. is saying. So there is no need for that. There is a dire need for coordination and information sharing. That, I think, there is a need for that. But Yemen is a sovereign country and will conduct the operation itself in order to stabilize the country and to eliminate the threat. And mind you, Pamela, Qaeda is not a threat to the United States as much as it is a threat to Yemen. You should see what it did in terms of the economy and tourism and investment. I learned from the UN that since 1990, I think, to now, 98% of Qaeda operations are against Muslims. So they are a threat, a mortal threat to societies like Yemen, more than they are a threat to a country like the United States, which has the resources to defend itself.
And do you think the major focus of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, particularly in Yemen, is the United States and Saudi Arabia at your border?
No, I think they have many reasons for concentrating on Yemen. First, Yemen has prohibitive terrain, and I think you can compare in terms of the terrain between Yemen and Afghanistan in terms of mountains and very, very difficult terrain. The second thing, Yemen is very close to the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, which control navigation. And don't forget, 60% of the world oil passes through Bab el-Mandeb. And Yemen is close to the Gulf and Saudi Arabia. So if they succeed,
so the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Aden.
No, they will. If Yemen, anarchy in Yemen and problems in Yemen will spill over to the Gulf countries, and that is and to Saudi Arabia. So it's not only Yemen. Yemen, and they want to dominate all this region because for them they want to go back to the 7th century. And that is why they call themselves, they are Salaf. The Salaf means to go back to the time of the beginning of Islam and to live that way. That is why everything for them is an innovation, and innovation is astray from Islam.
And the final question is just, are you optimistic about the coordinated efforts of the United States and Yemen to battle al-Qaeda and the terrorist threat?
I am extremely optimistic, and I predict that in a year's time things will be very much quieter than you ever think.
Well, I would like to thank Ambassador al-Saidi for joining us and answering so many questions. I'm Pamela Falk for CBS News.